Cool. All right. So next up, we're talking about this concept, what we're referring to as the art of newsjacking. And I think if you want to get better at content marketing, Chris, and you want to get better at inbound marketing, you should study two organizations, political campaigns and media companies. These organizations and these companies have to stay relevant. They have to control the message. They have to drive traffic and get engagement. They have to get people actually performing an action, but they have to do it like daily, it feels like. So I want you to walk me through how this concept of newsjacking, which is commonly used by political campaigns and media companies, how it applies to real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically, I think one time you called it riding on the shoulders of giants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning there are proven trends and topics out there. So like an example recently, Jimmy, with the Bird Box Challenge,
Yeah.
Bird viral, most watched movie ever. Next thing you know, there's like realtors putting out memes with like a blindfolded person. And it's like, hey, that's Zillow trying to guess a home value. But that would be kind of a fun, simple example of newsjacking. Another one would be like the Super Bowl. Yeah. So Super Bowl is happening this week. The whole world's talking about it and thinking about it and planning parties for it. And so you can actually leverage the fact that that's already buzzing, and then you can build content on the back of that. So, but here's my bigger point, Jimmy, because I know we're going to show a couple ways our clients have done it.
Yeah.
But I want to make a bigger point here. What I believe has changed and should change since we've been gone, there is not enough content being created specifically for past clients in Sphere. Okay? Everybody's obsessed about the next buyer lead, the next seller lead, the next lead. And nobody uses their blog or their page or their emails to actually engage and interact with the people they already know. They're always trying to get new people. And so go ahead.
Yeah, and here's the question for the audience right now. What percentage of your business comes from your past clients and your Sphere? Just drop in the chat right now. What percentage of your business comes? Because I think keep going with your point, Chris. I think you're going to hit it here hard.
Well, my guess is that 97% of their business comes from their past clients, and 97% of their marketing is not for them.
Yeah.
So as an example, people might wonder, well, I'm a realtor. How is writing an article about the Super Bowl going to help me?
Yeah.
Because it's not trying to get you a buyer or a seller. It's trying to keep you in contact with your past clients in your Sphere. So one example, we can pull this up, and I'll let you talk about Brian's.
Go on, pull up the slide, John.
Yeah, pull up the slide as far as, go to the next one for me, Jimmy. This is a technique we used this week. So we basically put out an article. Our marketers are great at this. And they put out an article where they basically talked about how to get your home ready for your Super Bowl party.
Yeah.
Plus 3 creative recipes you probably haven't thought about. So I love that they're like making the old real estate tactic of recipes new by leveraging it on the blog, not through like a postcard in the mail. But look at the results of that, Jimmy, as far as the open rate, the click-through rate. Like, these are doing great on Facebook. People love them. So like a lot of people are going to have a Super Bowl party that own a home where you live. Where would you rather them read how to get their house ready? Your site or someone else's? And like, this is just good content. This is what I call Sphere first content. Yeah. Past client first marketing. You've got another example here. Talk about Brian Powers, Jimmy. What did he do?
Yeah, well, Brian reminds me of a technique of our girl, Julie Mecco, one of our first curator clients, which I'll be talking about here in a minute. But Brian essentially he created more or less an illegal gambling ring to attract his past clients in his Sphere here. But essentially using Square, which honestly, I didn't even know how the hell Square works. I think you guess the score at the end of each quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Someone correct me here in the live chat if I'm wrong. But he basically created this video, which is, he's got an epic beard in it, which is great. But then he also kind of talks about like a way to get his clients engaged. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things you can do in a past client campaign is like get your clients to actually pay attention to you, re-engage you, reestablish that relationship. So he basically invites his clients to participate. It's kind of this community building angle here. But to your point, Chris, I think what's fascinating about this, I saw some of the responses coming in. People are saying 75%, 80%, 90% of my business is coming from my past clients and sphere. What Chris said there was so important. He's saying that 95% or 90% of your business is coming from your sphere, and 95% of your marketing is targeted towards strangers who are not, or who don't know who you are, don't like you, don't trust you, and never done business with you before. So what we're trying to really do here is balance the scales a little bit. And I think Brian does a wonderful job of doing that, Chris, leveraging Newsjacking, which is the Super Bowl, go Pats. And he's also using gambling, which is highly addictive, right? Which is obviously a proven strategy. So I think ultimately where my head goes when I see something like this, Chris, is if I'm watching right now the water cooler, I'm going to have my antenna up, thinking about what are the trends that everyone's talking about right this moment, and how can I package that in such a way to re-engage my past clients in a relevant way.
Exactly. And you mentioned Julie Mecco. Julie was one of our first 2 customers 6 years ago now. And she taught me this trick, and it's kind of like the idea of what's buzzing. Like, Jimmy, what happens when the Mega Millions hits $1 billion?
Yeah, people lose their shit, basically.
I mean,
what happens.
dude, 11 by my house is like a 3-hour wait to grab a ticket, right? My mom starts freaking texting me from Alabama, telling me to go buy some. So like Julie had a good strategy where when that happens, she actually will do a handwritten note campaign to her clients, checking in with them, and she'll include a $1 ticket. And at the end, her call to action is really clever. She'll say, hey, by the way, I know it sucks to get cards without anything in it. I'm not sure if you'll win or not, but text me and let me know either way. And she gets an insanely high reply rate coming back to her. We can also pull up the graphic here of the Super Bowl party, because it's simple visual, but you know, how to tackle your Super Bowl party plus 3 recipes you'll definitely want to make. So it's really just being more clever. So I know the topic is sort of like timing, but what you're really looking for in marketing and in real estate is a reason to call. Right? What is a reason to call? Well, now all of a sudden you've got this great article. So now you can go hit the phones and call all your past clients and say, hey, just wanted to check in and see if you're having a Super Bowl party this year at your house. Oh, you're not? Well, why don't you come to ours? Oh, you are? Well, I've got some great tips I'm going to send you about how to get your house ready, plus some recipes that you probably haven't thought about, just checking in. Like, I think that's a good touch.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a meaningful engagement with a past client, because let's be honest, Jimmy, how many times can you call them and ask them if they know anybody looking to buy or sell? You know,
it's such an important part of the process here, Chris. I think people underestimate what you're saying here. They're going to listen to it and they're going to think to themselves, oh, that's a good idea. What you're really saying is the reason everyone who's watching right now doesn't call their past clients isn't because you don't understand the value. It isn't because you don't understand the ROI. It's because you don't have a reason to call. And
That's it.
And the fact is that they're not admitting that, Chris, is preventing them from, I think, taking advantage of the obvious. Now, before we get into the next point here, Chris, about contrarian marketing, I did want to clarify Brian Powers is actually giving away these squares. He's not starting an illegal gambling ring. He just dropped a comment in the Facebook chat. I don't know how this stuff works, Brian. My bad.
Yeah, we have a global disclaimer to always follow all rules. Don't break any rules. But this is something people all over the country do. They do the squares. And that you're exactly right. He's giving away the squares. He's not selling the squares. So it definitely works.
Cool. All right. So let's talk about contrarian marketing, because I think this is probably one of my favorite takeaways from today's show as we were doing the prep for it. The simple fact is this, Chris, is that if you are online right now, you are entering into the most competitive space that's ever existed in marketing. You have every single brand out there creating more content, more videos, more posts, more live streams, trying to capture the attention of your customers. And we are in this fierce competition, whether or not you realize it or not, you are in this fierce competition for consumers' attention. And I think and I feel that the technique you're about to share here about becoming a contrarian is probably one of the single best ways that an individual business or real estate agent can actually stand out in a crowded space. Talk me through this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the high level tip here is like the way to stand out right now is to not make everything so positive. Like, you know, why do you think that they lead with blood on the news? You know what I mean? Why do you think everything on the news is negative? Because that's what gets people's attention. That's what gets people to tune in. So like, I think about that Lego movie, Jim. You remember that one? I don't know if you've seen it. You probably haven't seen it.
Are you talking about the Netflix one, or are you talking about the kids movie?
The kids movie.
Okay.
Yes. Not the business documentary about Legos. the one that says everything is awesome. Like if you haven't seen it, you won't get the joke, but most of the people have seen it. But that, like, they live in this phony world in the Lego movie that everything is awesome. Everything is perfect. Life is great. And it's just not the case. And what inspired me to come up with this tactic, like if the conversion code 2 came out today, contrarian marketing would be a whole chapter because it's that impactful. So what inspired me was the billboard everyone's seeing right now on the screen.
Yeah.
Like, this is a local billboard campaign that was running all over Orlando. And first of all, let's be real. A billboard campaign got my attention, number one. So that is obviously really hard. So if it gets your attention when you're driving, probably going to get your attention in the news feed or in an inbox as well. But look at the billboard, Jimmy. Mattress stores are greedy.
Yeah.
Learn the truth. TN.com.
Now,
And
let me stop you real quick. What would be, just, I want you to hit this point home. What would be a non-contrarian way to say this exact same sentence?
yeah, I was actually going to say that. Like what normally you would see would be our mattresses are awesome. Our mattresses are comfortable. Like there's a mattress company called Purple, and the guy wears like a whole suit filled with eggs, and he like falls on the mattress to prove that the eggs won't break.
Yeah.
So the opposite of this is we rock. Our mattresses are more comfortable than their mattresses. But this is the contrarian approach. And it caught my attention. I went to TN.com right when I was driving in the car. It's actually a great company called Tuft and Needle. And they're in a very competitive industry, Jimmy. It ain't just Casper anymore. There's Casper.
Yeah.
There's Purple. There's Tuft and Needle. That's what this company's called. So I took this idea and I applied it to ourselves. There's a trends report that comes out from Salesforce every year.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, here's the best marketing and sales trends you need to know. And every time that report comes out, Jimmy, there's like 500 articles that people write that say, here's the top takeaways from the trends report. Here's the best information from the trends report. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? I talked to our PR firm. I said, why don't we go negative? Why don't we actually call the article the 3 biggest mistakes that professional marketers are still making?
Yeah.
And Jimmy, we submitted that Ad Week. Like, I don't know if people know what Ad Week is, but it's a big freaking deal. And Ad Week wanted that article immediately. So think about it. Your Ad Week, you've got 8,000 PR firms hitting you up to put an article in there for their client. And they accepted our article right away because it was not what they were expecting to see. That article is actually available on Ad Week if people want to read it. So I saw it on the billboard, Jimmy, and then I applied it to our tactic and it worked. So then I met with our marketers and I said, guys, everything isn't awesome. Let's do some stuff that's not quite so positive. I'm not saying to be negative, and I know you're going to ask me about that in a second.
Yeah.
But they had an idea where they said, hey, here's 9 ways to clean up your home. And it was like basically cleaning tips. And it was good. And I said, guys, what if we switched that? And I don't know if I came up with the words or they did, a very collaborative process. But I said, what if it was the 9 things that are grossing out your guests? And so it's the same article, but the angle, that contrarian approach, Jimmy, this actually got more link clicks and engagement than any ad we've ever run on Facebook for our clients.
Yeah.
And by the way, Facebook doesn't work. Facebook is like, so it's all just bullshit. If you put out great content that's compelling, that's engaging, everything works. If you put out bad stuff, nothing works. Just keep that in mind. But like this article went viral. It did great. Look at the email stats, Jimmy. What do those email stats say? I can't even read them.
Yeah, well, it points 2 things out. First off, this email was only sent to 200 people, which is in real estate is like very uncommon. We coach our clients as a curator is the importance of segmentation because you want to actually have a deep relationship with the people you follow up with. But Chris, 65% of the people who you sent it to actually opened the email, and of that, 15% actually clicked through on the email. And to put things in perspective, Chris, the average open rate is somewhere probably between, depending on what report you use, 15%, 17% good. Click-through rate, 1% is pretty good. 2% is pretty good.
Go to the next slide, too. Show them the actual visual of the article. Like, you can see the graphic, kind of was that kind of...
that double chin kind of push away. I like that.
You should see the comments on the feedback, like the consumers commenting on the post.
Yeah.
They loved it. They were piling on. That was from Dean's website. We did it for a couple clients. But It's a really good tactic. What are your thoughts though on like, we don't want to be negative or pessimist. Like, is there anything that's too much?
Yeah, I think you got to be careful in terms of the amount of times you use this type of strategy. I think I saw someone in the chat say, you know, realtors suck. Learn the truth here. I think Joe's joking here, but it's like he's on the right track. He's got to pull back a little bit here. I think the thing about it is that if you go back to that slide here and you look at mattress stores are greedy, the dance this company's playing is they're not saying, you know, Bob's mattress is greedy. They're saying mattress store. So they're kind of picking an enemy, Chris, that is an enemy that really is either like not specific enough to offend somebody, or it's sort of like something that everyone kind of hates is the point. I think the balance there as it relates to contrarian marketing, Chris, is that it doesn't always have to be negative, but I think taking a different perspective on an article. An example, when they go negative, you go positive. When they go positive, you go negative. That might be a good kind of baseline to work off of. But what you said there before you were wrapping it up, you said this idea like great marketing works. And that's actually at the heart of what we coach at Curator, is that people are trying to figure out and trying to sort of manufacture the way to getting more business, Chris. And it all starts with like this basic idea of great marketing. So that's where we start. We're thinking like, how do we ask ourselves this question? How do we create great marketing? Contrarian is certainly a method we use to accomplish that.
Jimmy, remember one of our first websites, the headline said, putting an end to cheesy real estate marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Quit sending me your clock back reminders. My iPhone does it automatically. Right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't
I still love that headline.
An agent, just a group of agents. The other one I remember as you were talking is we have a gym that we work with in New Hampshire. And I was talking to Matt, the owner of the gym, and he had a marquee. You know how like a business has like a sign where they can change out the letters and change out the slogan. And basically he used my idea and he said, working out sucks. It just sucks less here.
Yeah.
Like, honest. And Jimmy, mattress stores are greedy, by the way. Like, you know what I'm saying? So part of it is just the truth.
I think the marketing's working on you here. You know?
My last example for real estate.
Yeah.
How many times, Jimmy, have we seen home values are up? The market's up. The market's doing great. You've gained equity. Your home's worth more now. Like that's one way to spin it. But you've got an angle here that's a little different that kind of taps into fear, taps into contrarian. The other thing I thought about is like the market being up is positive for sellers, but it's scary for a buyer. Like, hey, great news, seller. Your home's worth more. Hey, buyer, you're about to have to spend way more a year from now if you keep waiting. Yeah. What is your angle here with the equity, Jimmy?
Yeah, well, your point is really well taken, Chris, because part of the reason people are afraid to sell their home is because they are afraid they can't afford to buy a new home. So you should be thinking about that as you speak to it. Shula, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Shalu, perhaps. I'm terrible pronouncing names. I'm sorry, especially on live on the air. She says pain is a greater motivator than gain. And it's actually true. The psychology behind it is that pain essentially is twice as more motivating than like gaining something new is. So what we're doing here with this direct mail campaign is we're making it visual and beautiful and clean and simple, which is all the elements of a great direct mail campaign or a great campaign period. But then we're also saying to the consumer, do not lose your equity, which basically says this is something you own, something that is yours, something that you had earned. And we are trying to entice them to basically pick up the card, look at it more than 2 seconds, and flip it over. And when they flip it over, what we're talking about here is this idea that by listing with another agent, they're essentially, or listing with an average agent, they're essentially going to lose money on the transaction because the average agent sells homes for less money than this reputable, great firm that they're gonna try to hire or try to pull in here. So the idea here, Chris, is very simple. Rather than saying home values are on the rise, click here to learn more, we're basically saying you have equity in your home and we do not want you to lose it. That elicits an emotion from the consumer, and then we have a clear kind of call to action, some copy that reinforces that. I'm actually curious here, guys, because I want to get some feedback, Chris. How many of you are actually taking risks with your direct mail campaign? Because I'm telling you right now, Chris, I've never seen a direct mail campaign look like this. They're all like the same exact picture of a house, same slogan, just listed, just sold. Like what Chris is talking about, what I'm talking about here, guys, is this basic idea. You got to be different if you want to stand out. And this is just one way to do it.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Anyone that gets that owns a home is going to flip it over, which is already a big win. I mean, let's be honest. Most of it just goes right in the trash when it's mail. So just to get it to flip over, you know what it reminds me of? Another book we can recommend. I'm guessing a lot of people have read it, but some probably haven't.
Yep.
Purple cow, right?
Yeah.
If you see a purple cow, you stop everything and you just stare. But if you see a black and white cow or a brown cow, it's just how cows are supposed to be. Seth Godin, Purple Cow. That's a whole book on how to stand out.